We have a guest at the A News studios here with us. We have economist Mr. Enver ERKAN to talk to us about the 25-point rise in interest rates. Welcome.
Thank you.
With the Federal Reserve raising interest rates by 25 points, what does this mean for the Turkish economy as well as global markets?
It's an expected rate hike from Fed. There's no surprise for global market, I think. But the main focus is on the dots graph of Fed, which indicates the future rate hike expectations of Federal Reserve. So when we look at the dots graph, the median is the same as previous. So the Federal Reserve still expects totally 3 rate hikes for 2018, which was the same with the previous statement. The markets were considering a 4th rate hike for pricing actions, so the statement of Fed is taken as dovish by the global markets. So this is negative for dollar and positive for any other currencies such as euro or any other emerging market currencies. And it's a plus for equity indices also because Fed is still waiting to increase interest rates more fast, more slow. But the Trump issue is a negative one for equity indices because US equities are still struggling with Trump's views of protectionism and trade wars issue. And he will announce, I think, more tariffs on Chinese imports this evening. So there's still trade wars concern, which makes dollars to struggle, and also U.S. equity indices to struggle. And I think when we consider the Turkish lira pricing action, we see the movement with the same direction of any other emerging market currencies. Emerging markets are doing well since the Fed's policy decision. Low performing dollar is an advantage, but I expect we can make the story with the Turkish GDP growth, which will be announced in the next week. I think 3.90 level is a barrier for downward movements, and 3.95 level is the current interval, 3.95 and 3.90 level. I see the danger about 3.95 level. You know, the 4 psychological level we have as a target. And we have a high current account deficit and CPI, not a new one for us, but still issuing, considering in Turkish lira pricing action. But globally, I see the dollar with a limited upward potential because of Mr. Trump's government changes, struggles, and any other protectionism views. So I think dollar will go up further, but by a limited percentage of points, I think.
Mm-hmm. So if the dollar increases, what does this mean for emerging markets like Turkey? Is that more of a disadvantage for us?
Yes, this is an advantage for us because dollar is underperforming in compared to any other major currencies. So the American economy normally is doing well with high GDP growth rate and record low unemployment rate. But the markets are considering the Trump issue now, and that's negative for global growth trend because such Canada issue, Mexican issue, Chinese imports issue, there's that will bring more negativity global growth trend. And I think trade wars will make the dollar to perform badly compared to any other major currencies. I expect policy normalization actions from any other central banks also, such as European Central Bank and maybe Bank of Japan. And these currencies will do better compared to dollar, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. So this is Fed's newly elected director, Jeremy Powell's first move. What do you think this says about the kind of policies he'll follow from now on?
Fed's policy statement, there were some more hawkish details and also more moderate details also. So there is a mixed statement, I think, in Powell's speech also. The inflation is a big one because while the current year's inflation forecasts are unchanged, still below Fed 2% goal, 2090s and 2020s expectations revised upwards to 2.1%. Which means above the Fed's 2% goal. In line with the future rate hike expectations also removed upwards, so Fed is expecting one extra rate hike in 2019. So we can understand that Fed is not accelerating yet, still waiting to normalize the monetary policy via rate hikes, but sets the finish line more far away than before. That means Fed is still trusting the GDP growth, and also a record low unemployment rate will force the inflation more upwards in the near term through the wage growth, typically flips curve approach, So I think if the economy performs well, Mr. Powell will consider still more rate hikes, and we will be more data focused. We will have the most important ones, such as non-farm payrolls in the first week of next month, and also the core inflation numbers in the middle of next month.
Enver, that was most informative. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.